Hey everyone, welcome to session 2 on the Law of One Tarot. So if you haven't watched session 1, go back into my playlist, watch session 1 because for you to understand what I'm going to talk about today, which basically I'm talking about the matrix of the mind, and I'm going to explain the magician and the potentiator of the mind complex, and I'm going to explain the High Priestess, but you won't really understand it unless you go back to the first one and understand why the major arcana are placed this way. So what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to take all of these 7 cards. There's actually 8 because the Fool, the choice card, pairs up with the significant self. So these are meant to be discussed in pairs because they work together. So all week long, I'm going to cover the mind complex. And today, specifically, I'm going to talk about the magician, which is the matrix of the mind, and the potentiator, which is the High Priestess, okay, of the mind. So let's get into it. Now, just to define what matrix means, as per Merriam-Webster, it's something within or from which something else originates, develops, or takes from. So the matrix of the mind is the magician, and the magician represents consciousness. Consciousness is in this picture is symbolized as this round ball. This round ball can also be called your magical personality, and the magical personality is your higher self. So don't forget, your spirit is very different than your higher self. We all here on our 3D earth are having an experience with our spirit. Our higher self, our magical personality, which is represented, or source intelligence is represented in this ball of consciousness, in this round circle, is the 6th density. The 6th density is here. It's your third eye. So the magician is holding the round ball, crystal ball, in his right hand, and he's pointing kind of down to the box. So a square, as per Ra, is a symbol of 3rd density illusion. Okay, so this is from the Law of One series. You can access all this on LL Research. I believe this is book 5. It's the last book, or book 4 possibly. I can't remember. I'll link it down below. So the square is a symbol of 3rd density illusion. What is seen as having been manifested within, that is the material world, given life. So that's what the box basically represents. It's the illusion. It's all this material stuff that we have here that we think is real and we need to attain more and more of. It actually keeps us caged up, like this little bird is caged up. And the reason for this 3rd density illusion is polarity, and you can see it in the squares here, the black and white squares at the bottom. So going back, the matrix is something within or from which something else originates, develops, or takes form. So without consciousness, without this magical round ball, a circle, this, as per the Law of One, the circle indicates, so the sphere indicates the spiritual nature, the will. Consciousness is contained within the sphere, whereas your free will, which is a distortion, is contained within the box. This is very important, and I'll explain it in a minute. You have free will to do what you choose with your consciousness, which cannot be reached without the unconscious mind. So okay, and before I go on with that, Ra really does emphasize that, yeah, you can look at these cards and kind of figure out what they mean, but it's the relationships between the archetypes that are really more important. These are the pathways. So what I'm talking about is I'm just trying to give you a little bit of grounding with the Law of One Tarot and with the cards. That's all I'm trying to do, but it's really up to you to look at the cards and really interpret them for yourself for wherever you are in your life. And you can actually do that. I'm going to link, I've created a workbook for the Law of One Tarot. So I'll have that out in this week. I'll have it out, and there you'll see links down below. Okay. So now let's get back to you. So Ross says that the box here, which represents third density illusion, contains your free will. But this sphere, which is your magical personality, which is consciousness, which actually created all of this illusion in the first place. Without consciousness, you wouldn't have the unconscious. This sphere is your will. So we have free will in the box. And then we have our will from the magical personality represented as a circle in his hand. The difference between free will and will is when you're in the third density illusion, just like we all are, we all feel like or are told that we have free will. You have free will to do what you want. You really do. But do you really? No, you don't. Because any decision that you make in your life is influenced by her. It will be influenced by the High Priestess. It's potentiated. So your consciousness is potentiated by the unconscious. So let's look at what potentiator means. To potentiate, to make effective or active or more effective or more active, to augment the activity of something synergetically. So if you can visualize, and this is how I visualize these cards working together. So without consciousness, your unconscious mind can't be there. So you actually need this yang energy, this male principle for movement. So consciousness, which actually created everything here in this box. So consciousness kind of needs to plug in to the High Priestess. The magician needs to plug into the High Priestess to wake her up and be like, oh, we have consciousness here. Kind of like a photon, waking up. So plugs into the High Priestess. The High Priestess is like, okay, I'm up. All right, we're working together. Here we go. And she is yin. So very soft energy. And what she begins to do from childhood to, I can't remember what Ross said, but let's just say like most of your unconscious mind has seen and recorded from 0 to, I'm just going to say 7. I don't know what Ross said, but let's just say 0 to 7. Let's just say 0 to 7. So what happens is all that is picked up from our senses, all that we see, hear, is turned into feelings, and these things become coded in our unconscious mind. And as we grow up, we have no idea that all these registrations, all these like imprints have happened within our subconscious mind, because the imprints happen through feelings. So you see the experience, you don't remember it, right? You're not even conscious of it, but the unconscious will hold on to these experiences that you've had through feelings. So he plugs into her consciousness, is like, okay, we're here, let's do this 3D illusion world, let's play with this box here. That's the role, that's what your spirit came down here to do. So your spirit wants to connect with the higher self, with the great way. So plugs into the potentiator, and the potentiator begins to record. Unconscious begins to record as you're growing up. So now what she does, and this is why when you see her, she's the veil. We all know in spirituality what the veiling is. She is the first density, so she's the second density, the high priestess, and this is where it was in the second density that the veiling occurred. So you can see on her, she's wearing a veil, and she sits in between two pillars, and she sits in between a darker and a lighter pillar. So these represent yin and yang. The left side is the harder side. It's your more egoic side, whereas your right side is the path to your magical personality, path back to consciousness. So as she's recording all your messed up experiences and how you feel, you're not conscious of them as you grow into an adult, but your triggers will allow you to start figuring it out, figuring your feelings out. But most people would rather react than to do the self-inquiry work, right? So this is what our whole goal is. And that's why here you see her sitting on the box. This box now is totally covered by her gown, because we are fully in the illusion with this veil. We are fully thinking that we are the material world. We rule the roost, whereas we don't. It is coming from the high priestess. Now, if you look closely on these pillars as well, you'll see this image with, and she's also wearing an ankh, something like that, right there. And you also see this on the right-hand path, and you see it on the left-hand path, so the white pillar and the darker pillar. So this basically means whatever path you go on, God doesn't judge. You can go on your left-hand path, which is basically service to self, and God won't judge you. You can go on a right-hand path, which is service to others, and God won't judge you either. It'll just bring you closer to consciousness, closer to happiness, closer to the God path or the magical personality. And once you get there, once you unveil and you begin to come out of the polarity and you begin to come out of the box and start seeing this fear through your imagination, or you don't react to your feelings as much, you will be able to start looking into consciousness, looking into this globe, and really seeing and working through your magical personality. You will start to feel it first, and it's a feeling of peace. It's quite beautiful. But before that even happens, you have to, so this is just the first pairing, okay? So this unconscious, which is depositing all of this into the second chakra, she's the sacral chakra, your feelings, I feel. So she's doing all these deposits and it's unconscious. We think we're consciously reacting, but we're not. We're completely reacting from our feelings and the unconscious, which is the ego. So these two work together in that yin yang, male principle, female principle way. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about the catalyst of the mind and the experience of the mind, because the catalyst of the mind is the Empress, and she is also unconscious. And then the experience of the mind is the Emperor, who is conscious. So this is how messed up and difficult spiritual work is because we are double downed with two yin energies of unconscious mind. So the Empress basically is your ego, and we are working with the negative archetype of the Empress for a very long time until we get tired of the ego and start realizing the ego. So tomorrow we'll talk about how the catalyst and the experience work together, and I'll also, because these 4 cards are very closely linked with the mind complex, the Magician, High Priestess, Empress, and Emperor are extremely closely linked until finally you can get into your higher mind. So this here is all your lower mind until we start doing self-inquiry work. So tomorrow we will talk about that. I also will give you an example of how thought is formed and where these cards fit in when it comes to the 4 elements. Love you guys so much.